The bright lights of the Galactic Council chamber made Commander Catherine Moore squint. After 30 years of dealing with the 27 alien species that made up the Council, humans were still adjusting to the different lighting preferences. But that was the least of her concerns today. Catherine stood tall in her blue United Nations Space Command uniform. Next to her, Admiral William Hayes looked tense, his weathered face set in a frown. On her other side, Ambassador Nathan Curtis clutched a data tablet so tightly his knuckles had turned white. "The Council recognizes Earth's delegation," announced Counselor Zixtara, the tall reptilian representative of the Viridian species. Her scales shimmered under the chamber lights as she spoke. "You may present your petition." Ambassador Curtis stepped forward. "Honorable Council, Earth again requests permission to establish a colony on the fourth planet of the Tau Ceti system. Our surveys show it's perfectly suited for human habitation and outside any claimed territories." The 7 senior council members exchanged looks. Catherine noticed their subtle body language after years of diplomatic training. They had already made their decision. "The Council has reviewed your request," Zixtara said, her voice flat. "We find that human expansion to Tau Ceti would be destabilizing to galactic harmony at this time. Your request is denied." Admiral Hayes took a half-step forward before Catherine placed a gentle hand on his arm. "This is the 3rd habitable world. You've denied us in 2 years," Hayes said, keeping his voice level with visible effort. "May we ask why?" "Younger species require guidance," answered Counselor Vren, a blue-skinned humanoid. "Humanity has been spacefaring for only 3 decades. The Council has existed for 12,000 years. Trust our wisdom." Catherine watched Ambassador Curtis's face. In diplomatic language, they had been called children. Again. "We understand," said Curtis with a tight smile. "If there's nothing else, we'll return to our quarters to prepare for tomorrow's technology regulation meeting." The council members nodded, clearly pleased with how easily the humans had accepted their ruling. Catherine knew better. Curtis was furious beneath his professional demeanor. Back in the human embassy section of the massive space station, the 3 of them gathered in a secure room. "This can't continue," Hayes said, pacing the floor. "They're boxing us in. Earth is overcrowded and they know it. We have the ships and technology to colonize new worlds, but they block us at every turn." Catherine looked out the viewport at the incredible structure of the council station. It's always galactic harmony or proper development timelines, never a straight answer. Ambassador Curtis had been silent, reviewing something on his tablet. "I think I found out why," he said, quietly. The other 2 turned to him. "My assistant Jerry managed to access some restricted council archives during the meeting. Look at this." He placed the tablet on the table. The screen showed internal council communications dating back 28 years, just after first contact with humanity. Catherine read aloud. "Species 4276, human, displays concerning development patterns. Technological advancement from planetary travel to rudimentary faster-than-light capability in less than 200 years exceeds normal evolutionary timelines by factor of 6.3. Recommend immediate integration into council framework with appropriate limitations to ensure controlled development." "They've been holding us back on purpose," Hayes whispered. Curtis nodded. "There's more. Scientific exchange programs, technology regulations, colony restrictions. It's all designed to slow us down while they study us and drain our resources through those fair trade agreements." Catherine added, feeling sick to her stomach. Their secure communication unit chimed. Hayes answered it, and a pale-faced officer appeared on screen. "Admiral, there's been an attack on New Hope Colony in the Alpha Centauri system," the officer reported. "Initial reports suggest pirates with energy weapons far beyond typical raider capabilities. We have at least 37 dead, sir." Catherine watched Hayes's face harden into something she'd never seen before. "I'm returning to Earth immediately," Hayes said. "Commander Moore, stay with the ambassador. We need to know if the council had any knowledge of this." 3 days later, Catherine stood in the council chamber again. This time, the full council of 27 species was present. News of the attack had spread quickly, and Earth had requested an emergency session. "The Council extends sympathies for your losses," said High Counselor Zixtara. "We have already dispatched investigation teams to assist in tracking these pirates." Ambassador Curtis stepped forward. Something had changed in him since the attack. He seemed calmer, more resolved. "We recovered fragments of the weapons used against our colony," Curtis said, his voice echoing in the chamber. "Our scientists have confirmed they contain alloys and energy signatures exclusively used by Perdak's military vessels." The Perdak's representative, a tall insectoid being, buzzed angrily. "This is an outrageous accusation. The Perdak's hierarchy would never arm pirates." "We are not accusing the Perdak's government," Curtis continued smoothly. "But we find it interesting that such restricted technology ended up in the hands of raiders who specifically targeted human mining operations." Catherine watched the subtle shifts among the council members. Some looked genuinely shocked, others carefully avoided eye contact. "What exactly are you suggesting, Ambassador?" asked Zixtara. "I'm not suggesting anything," Curtis replied. "I'm informing the Council that effective immediately, Earth is suspending its membership and withdrawing from all Council treaties." The chamber erupted in shouts and exclamations. Several Council members rose from their seats, speaking all at once in different languages. Even the translation system struggled to keep up. Zixtara slammed a ceremonial staff against the floor 3 times, restoring order. "You cannot be serious, Ambassador. No species has ever withdrawn from the Council. The consequences would be severe. Your worlds would lose Council protection." Admiral Hayes, who had returned that morning, stepped forward. "The same protection that failed our colonists? Or are you threatening us, Counselor?" "Of course not." Zixtara backtracked quickly. "But surely this can be resolved through proper channels. The loss of life is tragic, but rash decisions help no one." Catherine moved to stand beside Curtis and Hayes, presenting a united human front. "This isn't a rash decision," Catherine said, her voice clear and controlled. "We've reviewed the Council's internal documents regarding humanity. We know you've been deliberately limiting our development and expansion." The silence that followed confirmed everything. Ambassador Curtis looked around the chamber one last time. Humanity joined the Council, seeking friendship and cooperation among the stars. Instead, we found control and manipulation. We did not escape the bonds of Earth to accept new chains. He placed his Council identification badge on the podium before him. "Earth and all human settlements hereby withdraw from the Galactic Council. We will defend our people and pursue our destiny without your permission or approval." As they turned to leave, Catherine delivered the final message they had prepared. "We came seeking peace as equals. When that proved impossible, we choose independence over submission. We harbor no ill will, but from this moment forward, humanity walks its own path among the stars." The humans departed the chamber in perfect unison, leaving stunned silence behind them. No one had ever walked away from the Council before. No one had ever dared. 8 months passed since humanity's dramatic exit from the Galactic Council. Earth and its colonies had gone quiet on all official diplomatic channels. The silence made the Council nervous. Dr. Patricia Wells stood in her laboratory on Luna Base, Earth's moon. For years, her research into advanced energy systems had been classified as potentially destabilizing to galactic peace by Council regulations. Now those restrictions were gone. "Try the new configuration," Patricia said to her team. The lab hummed as power flowed through experimental circuits. A small sphere of energy formed between 2 pylons, growing stable where previous attempts had failed. The team cheered as readings showed energy output far beyond Council-approved. "Systems, we did it," whispered Patricia, watching the readouts. 6 months of work and we've broken through the energy barrier they said was impossible." Her assistant, a young physicist named Alex, looked up from his station. "The Council lied to us about a lot of things, didn't they?" "They didn't lie exactly," Patricia said. "They just never gave us the full picture. They guided our research away from certain areas. Now we know why." On the other side of Luna Base, General Eric Powell walked through a massive construction hangar. Workers swarmed over the frame of a ship unlike anything humans had built before. Without Council restrictions, Earth's engineers had redesigned their vessels from the ground up. How soon until completion? Eric asked the lead engineer, Samuel Grant. Samuel wiped sweat from his forehead. 3 weeks for this prototype. If it performs as expected, we can start mass production at the Mars shipyards. Good. We need every ship we can get. Eric looked up at the massive frame. Does it have a name yet? The crew has been calling it Defiance, Samuel said with a slight smile. Eric nodded. Fitting. In a different part of space, far from human territory, Carol Bennett sat in a crowded alien bar on the trade hub world of Crix. She sipped a blue drink that was safe for human consumption while watching the entrance. Her job as an intelligence operative had become much more dangerous since Earth's withdrawal from the Council. A tall, four-armed alien entered the bar and ordered a drink. Carol recognized the Council security insignia partially hidden under his cloak. She adjusted her position to hear his conversation with the bartender. Any news from the human sectors? The Council agent asked. The bartender, a member of a species that resembled a humanoid lizard, shrugged. Trade ships come and go. They buy, they sell, they leave. No trouble. Nothing unusual? No military movements? Why so interested in humans? The bartender asked. They keep to themselves these days. Carol smiled behind her drink. That was exactly what Earth wanted everyone to think. In reality, humanity was preparing at a pace that would shock the Council. She slipped away when the Council agent moved to another section of the bar. Her real target would arrive soon, a data courier with access to Council military communications. 3. Hours later, Carol transmitted an encrypted message to Earth. Council planning observation fleet near Alpha Centauri. Defensive posture recommended. Back on Earth, the United Nations Space Command headquarters buzzed with activity. Admiral William Hayes studied the massive holographic display showing human territory and surrounding space. Intelligence reports. Confirmed, said a communications officer. Council ships moving toward our border at Alpha Centauri. Hayes nodded. Right on schedule. They're getting nervous about our silence. Catherine Moore, recently promoted to captain, stood beside him. Should we reveal our new defense capabilities? Not yet, Hayes said. Let them wonder a little longer. Catherine pointed to a blinking light on the display. The Council has sent another diplomatic envoy, 5th one this month. What should we tell this one? Asked a junior officer. Hayes considered this. The same thing we told the others. We are not hostile. We are not interested in rejoining. We wish to be left alone. Across the solar system, in a hidden facility on Jupiter's moon Europa, Ambassador Nathan Curtis met with Earth's unified government representatives. The room was secure, with no electronic devices allowed. The Council is spreading rumors about us, Nathan said, laying physical documents on the table. They're telling other species that humans are building weapons of mass destruction. They're trying to isolate us economically. President Laura Fisher, the newly elected leader of Earth's government, looked at the intelligence reports. Are our trade routes holding? Yes, Madam President. Independent worlds and even some Council species are still trading with us. They need our resources as much as we need theirs. And Project Prometheus? She asked. Nathan smiled for the first time. Ahead of schedule. Dr. Wells's energy breakthrough changed everything. We can now power systems the Council thought were theoretical. The meeting continued late into the night. By its end, Earth's government had unanimously approved a dramatic escalation in their plans. Meanwhile, at a secure facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Patricia Wells led a very different kind of briefing. The Council told us faster-than-light travel had certain unbreakable limitations, she explained to a room of engineers and military officers. They claimed their method was the only viable approach, which conveniently required technology they controlled. She activated a holographic display showing a new drive system. We now know that was a lie. This is a completely different approach to FTL travel. Our simulations indicate it's not only possible but more efficient than Council drives. General Powell, who had flown in from Luna, leaned forward. Can it be detected by Council sensors? Patricia shook her head. Not if used correctly. Their detection systems are calibrated for ripples in spacetime created by their drive technology. Ours works on a different principle. How soon until we can test it? Powell asked. The prototype is ready now, Patricia said. We're installing it on the Defiance next week. As humans across the solar system prepared, Council spy drones observed increased activity. They reported massive construction projects and energy signatures unlike anything seen before. But the purpose remained unclear. On the Council space station, the chambers that once welcomed human delegates now hosted emergency sessions. They're building something, insisted Counselor Zixtara, all across their system. Building what? Asked another council member. Our intelligence is incomplete. Does it matter? They've rejected our guidance and are developing unsanctioned technology. We cannot allow this precedent to stand. High Counselor Vex Moran, the supreme leader of the council, raised a hand for silence. Humanity's defiance must be addressed, but carefully. We will increase observation and prepare contingencies. What the council didn't know was that a human intelligence operative had infiltrated their military installation weeks ago. Agent Daniel Pierce downloaded the contingency plans and transmitted them through a series of relays back to Earth. The plans reached President Fisher's desk with a simple note from intelligence. Council preparing for containment of human expansion. Military action authorized if deemed necessary. That night, in a secret underground chamber, Earth's highest military and civilian leaders gathered for the final vote. If we do this, there's no going back, President Fisher said solemnly. Admiral Hayes nodded. They never intended to treat us as equals. The choice is between submission and independence. The vote was quick and unanimous. Project Prometheus was given full authorization. As the meeting ended, Carol Bennett's latest intelligence report arrived. Council military vessels were preparing to enter human space as a show of force. Admiral Hayes read the report and turned to Captain Catherine Moore. Inform all commands. Operation Silent Departure begins now. Across the solar system, humanity prepared for the Council's arrival in a way no one expected. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with anxious voices. High Counselor Vex Moran, the elderly leader of the most powerful species in the galaxy, called for order. Representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations gradually fell silent. The human situation grows more concerning, Vex Moran began. For 14 months they have ignored our diplomatic efforts. Their system shows unusual activity, yet they maintain a peaceful stance in all communications. Counselor Zixtara stood. Peaceful? They walked away from us. No species has ever rejected Council guidance. Their independence threatens the very foundation of our galactic order. From the back of the chamber, a rarely heard voice spoke up. Perhaps we should ask why they left. Heads turned to see Counselor Krell Toth, representative of one of the newer Council species. His gray skin and large eyes marked him as different from the dominant members. They left because they discovered our containment protocols, Krell Toth continued. Can we blame them? We never intended to treat them as equals. They are not equals, Zixtara hissed. Humanity advanced too quickly. Their development must be managed for everyone's safety. Vex Moran raised a hand for silence. Regardless of past actions, we must address the current situation. Our observers report massive construction throughout their system. We must know what they are building. I propose a direct approach, said a military commander from the Perdax species. A fleet demonstration near Earth will remind them of Council authority and allow closer observation. Several Council members nodded in agreement. Krell Toth shook his head but remained silent, knowing he was outvoted. Vex Moran made the decision. Prepare the fleet. We will show humans the consequences of their isolation. What the Council didn't know was that Agent Daniel Pierce sat just 3 levels below them, disguised as a maintenance worker. His enhanced hearing caught every word of the supposedly secure meeting. As Council members filed out, he slipped away to transmit his warning to Earth. Admiral Julia Rodriguez received the message while aboard her flagship. The Defiance. The vessel represented humanity's new direction, sleek, powerful, and built with technologies the Council had claimed were impossible. So they're coming to flex their muscles, Julia said to her officers gathered in the command center. Exactly. As we expected. Captain Kelly Daniels looked at the tactical display. All ships report ready, Admiral. Operation Silent Departure is complete. And our new detection systems? Functioning perfectly. We'll know the moment they enter the solar system. Julia nodded. Maintain position behind Jupiter until they arrive. Let's see how they react when they find what we've left them. 3 days later, a Council fleet of 15 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. Commander Draz of the Viridian military led the mission personally, confident it would be a simple show of force. Scan. For human vessels and defense platforms, Draz ordered from the bridge of his flagship. His sensor officer worked for several minutes, then looked up in confusion. Sir, I'm not detecting any military ships. In fact, I'm detecting almost no ships at all. Impossible. Check again. The officer adjusted his instruments. Confirmed, sir. Human orbital stations around Earth, Mars, and other colonies appear abandoned. No significant space traffic detected. Draz frowned. What about ground installations? Planetary scans? Cities appear normally populated, but space infrastructure seems evacuated. The Council commander felt uneasy. This was not what they expected. Spread the fleet out, search the entire system. They must be hiding somewhere. The Council vessels dispersed throughout the solar system, searching for the missing human space presence. Hours passed with no significant findings. In the shadow of Jupiter, Admiral Rodriguez watched the Council ships through special sensors that worked without revealing their own position. They're confused, said Captain Daniels with a slight smile. Good, Julia replied. Begin Phase 2. Throughout the human fleet hiding behind Jupiter, officers gave the command to activate their new faster-than-light drives. Unlike Council technology, these drives created no detectable distortion in space when preparing to jump. On the Council flagship, Commander Draz was about to order a closer approach to Earth when his tactical officer shouted in alarm. Multiple signatures appearing, they're all around us. Seemingly out of nowhere, 40 human warships materialized in perfect formation, surrounding the dispersed Council fleet. The Defiance appeared directly in front of Draz's flagship less than 2 kilometers away, a distance considered impossibly close for FTL emergence. Impossible, Draz whispered. Our sensors would have detected their approach. His communications officer turned from his station. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. Julia Rodriguez's face appeared on the main screen. Council fleet, this is Admiral Julia Rodriguez of Earth's First Fleet. You have entered sovereign human space without permission. State your purpose. Draz struggled to maintain his composure. This is Commander Draz of the Galactic Council. We are conducting a routine patrol. The Council has no patrol rights in human space, Julia replied calmly. We withdrew from all such agreements 14 months ago. The Council maintains responsibility for galactic security, Draz insisted. Your sudden technological developments require monitoring. Julia smiled slightly. To ensure we don't develop too quickly, Commander? Let me demonstrate why that policy has failed. Before Draz could respond, the human admiral gave an order. A brief pulse emerged from the Defiance, washing over his ship. Suddenly, every system on the Council flagship shut down except life support and communications. What did you do? Draz demanded as emergency lights flickered on. A targeted electromagnetic pulse, modified to affect your specific technology, Julia explained. Your weapons, shields, and engines will remain offline for approximately 6 hours. Don't worry. Life support will function normally. Looking at his sensor displays, Draz saw that 5 other Council ships had been similarly disabled. The rest of his fleet moved to defensive positions, but held fire. You've committed an act of war, Draz growled. No, Commander. We've demonstrated our right to defend our space, Julia corrected him. Had we wished for war, your ships would be destroyed, not merely disabled. When your systems reactivate, you will have 6 hours to leave the solar system. Draz stared at the human admiral. The Council will not accept this humiliation. The Council has two choices, Julia replied. Accept that humanity is not under your control, or face the consequences of forcing the issue. We developed these technologies in 14 months, once freed from your restrictions. Imagine what we'll create if you push us further. With that, the communication ended. The human ships maintained their positions, weapons ready but not firing. 6 hours later, as promised, the disabled Council ships regained power. The entire Council fleet retreated to the edge of the system and jumped. Away, Julia watched them leave from the Defiance's bridge. Send the broadcast, she ordered. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, communication systems simultaneously received the same message from Earth. We wished for peace as equals. You chose to treat us as children. We are not hostile, but we will not be controlled. In the Council chambers, panic spread as reports came in of the military embarrassment. High Counselor Vex Moran faced angry demands for action. They humiliated our fleet, shouted Zixtara. We must respond with force. Counselor Kreltoth spoke up again. Or perhaps we should reconsider our approach. Humans have proven they can defend themselves. Maybe it's time to treat them as the equals they wish to be. For the first time in the Council's long history, the path forward was unclear. Humanity had not only walked away from peace, they had demonstrated the power to define it on their own terms, and the Council had no idea what to do next. 2 years after humanity's demonstration against the Council fleet, the galaxy had changed in ways few could have predicted. President Margaret Owens stood at the window of her office in the new United Earth Government building in Geneva, watching snow fall gently on the mountains in the distance. Madam President, they're ready for you, said her assistant. Margaret nodded and straightened her jacket. The meeting today would shape humanity's future among the stars. The delegates waiting for her represented species that, until recently, had been firmly under Council control. In the large conference room, representatives from 5 non-human species rose as she entered. Some had tentacles, others had fur or scales, but all shared the same look of hope and worry. Thank you for coming, Margaret said warmly. Earth welcomes you as friends. The tallest delegate, a blue-skinned being named Veller, spoke first. We take great risk meeting openly with humans. The Council has forbidden direct diplomacy with your kind. Yet here you are, Margaret smiled. Because the Council's power is not as absolute as they claim. Another delegate, a small reptilian female named Zix, nodded eagerly. We watched how you disabled their fleet without destruction. It showed strength and restraint. Our people were impressed. Margaret took her seat at the head of the table. Let's discuss what brings you here. The formation of the Free Systems Alliance. Across the galaxy on the trading world of Nerix, Captain Frank Miller walked through a bustling marketplace. His merchant vessel, the Horizon, had docked just hours before to trade Earth goods for local materials. Unlike Council-controlled ports where humans now faced heavy restrictions, independent worlds welcomed Earth's fair trading practices. Frank stopped at a stall selling exotic fruits and bought one that his ship's computer had confirmed was safe for human consumption. The vendor, a short 4-armed being, counted the payment carefully. You humans charge less than Council merchants, the vendor commented. They demand 3 times this price for basic goods. We believe in fair trade, Frank replied simply, biting into the sweet fruit. A commotion at the end of the street caught his attention. Several beings were running, and alarms began to sound throughout the port. Raiders! Someone shouted. Council space pirates! Frank tapped his communication device. Miller to Horizon, what's happening? His first officer responded immediately. 3 ships just dropped into orbit. They're targeting civilian areas. Local defense forces are overwhelmed. Frank ran back, toward his ship, joining the flow of panicked beings seeking shelter. Prepare to assist, activate defensive systems. The Horizon was a merchant vessel, but like all human ships operating in independent space, it carried defensive weapons that would have been illegal under Council regulations. As Frank reached his ship, he saw the raiders' smaller craft diving toward the marketplace. Without hesitation, he ordered his crew to position their ship between the attackers and the civilian areas. "Warning shots only," Frank commanded. "Let them know we mean business." The Horizon's defense systems fired precise bursts that flashed just meters from the raider ships. The unexpected resistance caused the attackers to pull back in confusion. "Human vessel," came a harsh voice over the communication system. "This is not your concern. The Council has declared this world in violation of trade regulations. This is Captain Frank Miller of the Earth merchant vessel Horizon," Frank replied calmly. "This world has no treaty obligations with the Council. Your actions constitute piracy under universal space law." The raiders hesitated, clearly surprised by both the resistance and the legal knowledge. After a tense moment, they retreated to orbit and eventually jumped away. The local authorities were grateful. Word spread quickly through the independent systems. Humans not only traded fairly, but also protected those who did business with them. Back on the Council station, a closed emergency session was underway. High Counselor Vex Moran looked tired as he faced his increasingly divided governing body. "Reports confirm that 3 more member species have opened direct negotiations with Earth," he announced grimly. "The Tellarites, Axanar, and Denobulans are considering leaving the Council to join what humans call the Free Systems Alliance." Counselor Thrixven, who had recently risen to prominence as a warhawk, pounded his fist on the table. "This is intolerable. First, they defy us directly. Now they steal our members. We must take military action." Counselor Kreltoth, who had become the voice of moderation, sighed. "And what would that accomplish? Their technology now rivals or exceeds our own. Any conflict would devastate both sides." "Better that than watching our 1,000-year order crumble," Thrixven growled. "Humans are spreading dangerous ideas about equality and independence. Member species are questioning tribute payments and technology restrictions. Where will it end?" In a distant part of Council space on a small world called Talaris, a resistance leader named Ravnar watched a recording of President Owens announcing the Free Systems Alliance principles: equal representation, technology, sharing, and mutual defense. Ravnar's people had been conquered by the Council centuries ago. They were used primarily as manual laborers, denied education and technology that might help them improve their status. Could humans truly be different? He wondered aloud. His fellow resistance members gathered around the small holographic projector. They had been fighting Council occupation for generations with little success. "We should contact them," suggested a female Talari named Mira. "What do we have to lose?" Ravnar nodded slowly. "Prepare a ship. We will reach out to these humans and see if their promises of equality are real." 3 weeks later, Admiral Nicole Howard received an urgent message while inspecting Earth's newest defense platform. A small Talari ship had entered human space, requesting asylum and alliance talks. Nicole quickly arranged for the Talari representatives to be escorted safely to Earth. But as the escort ships departed, her tactical officer reported a concerning development. "Admiral, long-range sensors detect multiple Council vessels approaching the Talari ship's course. They appear to be in pursuit." Nicole frowned. "Intercept course, maximum speed." The human ships, led by Nicole's flagship Determination, arrived just as 5 Council vessels surrounded the small Talari craft at the boundary between human and Council space. "Council vessels, this is Admiral Nicole Howard of the Free Systems Alliance. The Talari ship is under our protection." The Council commander responded immediately. "This vessel contains fugitives from Council justice. Stand aside, human." "The Talari have requested asylum," Nicole replied firmly. "We are escorting them to Earth for diplomatic talks." "The Talari are Council subjects with no authority to engage in diplomacy," the commander stated. "This is your final warning. Withdraw or we will remove the vessel by force." Nicole gave orders to move her ships into a defensive formation around the Talari craft. "We will not allow you to interfere with those seeking freedom from oppression." Tension filled the bridge as weapon systems on both sides activated. The Council ships, remembering the previous encounter with human technology, hesitated to fire first. In that moment of hesitation, 3 more human ships dropped out of FTL travel, tilting the balance of power decisively. The Council commander finally backed down. "This matter is not concluded, Admiral. The Council will view this interference as a hostile act." "Noted," Nicole replied simply. "Safe journey back to Council space." As the Council ships retreated, Nicole contacted the Talari vessel. Ravnar's face appeared on screen, showing both fear and hope. "Thank you, Admiral," he said. "My people have lived under Council control for centuries. We had almost lost hope until we heard about humans standing up to them." "You're safe now," Nicole assured him. "President Owens is looking forward to meeting you." As the ships resumed course to Earth, Nicole received an urgent message from intelligence. The Council had just declared humanity an existential threat to galactic stability and had called for an emergency vote on military action. The galaxy stood at a crossroads. Humanity's decision to walk away from peace had created ripples that now threatened to become a tidal wave of change, and the Council was growing desperate to stop it. 5 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. What began as a single world's defiance had grown into something that changed the face of the galaxy. The Free Systems Alliance now included 12 species, with humans as the founding members, but all having equal voice. Fleet Admiral Nicole Howard stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship Freedom, watching as ships from a dozen worlds moved in perfect formation. The combined fleet represented the greatest collection of military power outside the Council's control in galactic history. "Status report," Nicole ordered. Her second-in-command, a human officer named Commander Greg Wilson, looked up from his console. "All ships report ready, Admiral. The Talari refugees are safely behind our defensive line." Nicole nodded. The Talari situation had finally come to a head. After their initial contact with humanity 3 years ago, more of the oppressed species had sought freedom. Now an entire fleet of civilian ships carrying nearly 1 million Talari refugees was attempting to leave Council space to join the Alliance. The Council had declared this exodus illegal and sent warships to stop it. The Alliance had responded by positioning their fleet at the border to protect the refugees. "Incoming transmission from the Council fleet," announced the communications officer. Nicole straightened her uniform. On screen, the image of Supreme Leader Drav Koreth appeared. He had risen to power within the Council after Vex Moran's government collapsed under the pressure of multiple species threatening to leave. Drav Koreth represented the most militant faction, who believed only force could restore the Council's dominance. "Admiral Howard," he said coldly, "remove your ships immediately. The Talari are Council subjects attempting to flee lawful authority." Nicole met his gaze calmly. "The Talari have requested Alliance protection and membership. We recognize their right to self-determination." "There is no such right," Drav Koreth snapped. "The Council has maintained galactic stability for thousands of years by guiding lesser species. Your alliance undermines the very foundations of civilized space." "Perhaps those foundations needed undermining," Nicole replied. "The Talari ships will pass safely to Alliance space. Any attempt to stop them will be considered an act of war." The Supreme Leader's face darkened. "This is your final warning, human. The Council has been patient long enough." The transmission ended abruptly. Nicole turned to her bridge crew. "Alert all ships. Defensive positions. Weapons ready, but do not fire unless fired upon." Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the confrontation through various media channels. On a joint human-alien colony world called New Hope, Governor Alan Russell gathered with his staff in the administration building to monitor the situation. "Will there be war?" asked his deputy, a member of the Axanar species who had been among the first to join the Alliance. Alan sighed. "I hope not. But the Council can't keep losing members without fighting back. They're afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Freedom?" the deputy asked. "Afraid of change," Alan explained. "Their system worked for thousands of years. They controlled technology, resources, and knowledge. Now it's slipping away, and they don't know how to stop it." Back at the border between Council and Alliance space, the Talari refugee ships continued their slow journey. The Council fleet moved to intercept, while Alliance vessels adjusted their positions to protect the civilians. "They're targeting the lead refugee ship," reported Commander Wilson. Nicole leaned forward in her chair. "Move Task Force Delta to intercept. Remember, defensive measures only." The tension grew as Council ships came within firing range. Nicole knew the next few moments would determine whether peace was still possible. Suddenly, Commander Wilson called out, "Admiral, multiple new contacts appearing within the Council fleet. Reinforcements?" Nicole asked, concerned. "No, ma'am. They appear to be Council ships powering down their weapons." Nicole watched in surprise as nearly a third of the Council fleet shut down their weapon systems. Communications channels filled with confused chatter. "We're receiving a transmission from one of the Council ships," said the communications officer. Nicole nodded. On screen. The face that appeared wasn't Drav Korath, but a Council captain Nicole didn't recognize. Behind him, his crew appeared, tense but determined. "Admiral Howard, I am Captain Moran of the Council vessel Enlightenment. My ship and others can no longer follow orders to fire upon refugees. We request permission to escort the Talari ships to safety." Nicole was momentarily
speechless.
This was unprecedented. Council military vessels openly defying orders. "Permission granted, Captain," she finally replied. "Take position alongside our escort vessels." Supreme Leader Drav Korath's voice cut through all channels, filled with fury. "All defying vessels will be considered traitors. Resume your positions or face destruction." In response, more Council ships powered down their weapons. The mutiny spread rapidly until over half the Council fleet stood down. Faced with this unexpected rebellion, Drav Korath ordered his remaining loyal ships to target the mutineers. But as they prepared to fire, Alliance vessels moved into protective positions around both the refugees and the defecting Council ships. "This is your last chance, Supreme Leader," Nicole broadcast. "Stand down your forces. The galaxy is changing. You can be part of that change or be left behind." For several tense minutes, the outcome hung in the balance. Then, one by one, the remaining Council ships lowered their weapons. Drav Korath's flagship alone maintained battle readiness. Finally, it too powered down and retreated from the border. The refugee ships continued their journey safely into Alliance space, accompanied by their new protectors. News of the Council fleet's mutiny spread quickly across the galaxy. 5 weeks later, representatives from every spacefaring species gathered on neutral ground, a space station constructed specifically for this historic meeting. The old Council structure was officially dissolved, replaced by a new galactic assembly where all species had equal representation and voice. Ambassador Catherine Moore, who had delivered humanity's withdrawal notice 5 years earlier, now stood as Earth's representative to this new assembly. As she entered the chamber for the first session, she paused to look at the gathered delegates from dozens of worlds. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when we walked away?" asked Nathan Curtis, who had accompanied her as an advisor. Catherine shook her head. "No, we just knew we couldn't accept being controlled." As the session began, Catherine was invited to speak first, as a representative of the species that had sparked this galactic transformation. She stepped to the podium and looked out at the assembled delegates. 5 years ago, humanity walked away from a peace that came with chains. Today, we gather to build a peace based on respect and equality. The path wasn't easy, but it proved what my people have always believed. Sometimes walking away from a bad deal is the only way to create a good one. The chamber erupted in applause. A new chapter in galactic history had begun, not through conquest or domination, but because one species had the courage to demand better, and the galaxy would never be the same.